Isabel Bethencourt and Parker Hill are the directors of the Showtime documentary Cusp. I'm Matt Noble at Gold Derby, and I wanted to kick things off by asking you guys about something that was said towards the beginning of the film, where one of the subjects of the film talks about how most girls suffer because they are not seen. Parker, what was something that you wanted people to see from watching this film?
Well, thanks so much. Thanks so much for having us, by the way. We're excited to be here. Something that I think we talk about a lot, that we hope people see in this movie is, growing up, Izzy and I don't think saw enough stories about complex female characters. And, I don't think it's about summing it up to being one thing. I think it's about seeing enough stories to understand that women are going through all types of things and all sorts of stories. And so I think part of a girl or a woman feeling seen is, knowing that whatever you're going through is like normal and valid and real. And so part of something that we hope happens with this film is that people can relate to some of what these girls are going through and say, oh, like, I'm not weird because that's something kind of similar is happening to me. And that's okay. Like, it's a real experience. I feel like validating or affirming when you see even just emotions that you have felt on screen. It feels good. It feels you feel seen to know that like something you're going through is something that other people are going through.
What do you think, Isabel?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. We talked a lot about too, kind of getting to show what teenage girls are really dealing with and how much they deal with. I think they're often sort of discounted or disregarded in the kind of cultural conversation, but we also really wanted to show sort of what it looks like to be a girl in certain places and going to parties and being in rooms like that, and how normal it all feels, but then also the darker realities of what they're actually going through.
Yeah. Like, with a film like this where you guys are following around, you guys were cinematographers as well as the directors, you sort of can't plan everything out and how it's going to happen. What sort of were maybe one or two of those moments that, I don't know, surprised you, or that you were sort of, I don't know, like just sort of blown away by as it was sort of playing out, Isabel?
I mean, I think, a lot of the moments when you're making a verité film, you're just there to see what happens. And we have hundreds of hours of footage of,
just being present,
just like random stuff. And, and you wind up being around for moments that really matter. And I think, almost every scene was a surprise in a way, because every day we were learning something new about the girls and the lives and the story. So it really all kind of grew on top of each other.
And there definitely were a few days, where you're like, they almost didn't happen. I think about like this one day, Autumn and her friend G wanted to go to the beach, and we almost didn't join them. And then we did, and they were just like having a great time at the beach. And that day, the scene is in the film, Autumn's boyfriend broke up with her. And it's like, you just have to be willing to go and do things, not knowing what's going to happen, and being patient. And I'm happy we went to the beach that day, I guess, to capture that moment.
We see Parker in that scene, and I think you edited it too, Parker, the film. What, like, we see the phone ding, and then we see her in the bathroom talking about the breakup, but we don't see her reaction reading the text. Was that sort of a choice you made? Was it just dependent on the footage you had?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would say dependent on the footage. In a verité film, you're trying to use you're trying to capture what you can. It's also a very like personal moment. And Izzy noticed what was going on in the moment, and Autumn like read the text and then went to the bathroom and asked Autumn if she could come into the stall and film her and see what was going on. So, I mean, that particular moment, I guess, is based on what was captured. But I think there's also something to be said about like sometimes seeing how someone feels about something is almost just as powerful as literally whatever that text said.
Yeah, no, that was quite powerful. with these three girls, with Brittany, Aloni, and Autumn, there's also a line sort of early in the film where one of them says, "There's no normal in teenage years." How do you pick three girls to sort of represent teenage years when there is no normal, Isabel?
Right. I mean, I think, I think her statement still holds. I think something we were trying to do was show, a snapshot of these three girls' lives. And I mean, I think we were drawn to these three because we all became quite close and we got along really easily. And it was just sort of a natural draw to them as our characters. And I think that's kind of the point too, is that there is no one way to have a teenage experience. And but every story you add to the pile of stories can, maybe help someone feel like they're not isolated. Because I think that's the real thing that happens with teenagers, is when you aren't seeing stories that are told like the one that you feel like you're going through, then you feel like you're totally alone. And so in part, her statement is true because everyone's unique, but it's also part of the not the problem, but the feeling that people have in teenagehood where it's like, oh, no one's doing it the same. We're all isolated in our experiences. But then the truth is that we're actually much more similar than we are unlike.
Was it hard finding the girls, Parker?
Well, I mean, this film came about in a very organic fashion. We didn't cast them for a story that we had. We were on a road trip. We're photographers. We were on like a photo road trip, and we met a group of girls like at a gas station at 3 a.m. or 2 a.m. And met them in like a very organic way, and just got to hanging out and got to be friends with them. We became fast friends, and that's kind of how this story came about. We met these three girls that night, and just stayed in touch and kind of kept it going. So it's crazy to think that that docs come about in a very different fashion. Sometimes people are like looking for something and they cast it, but this really just happened organically.
God, it's so cool. Isabel, like, how was that moment when you guys met them? Like, what was the what drew you into them? What made you think these guys? What connected you guys?
Yeah, so Parker and we also have backgrounds in photography. We met while we were both studying film at NYU, and we were on a road trip, in this little RV from Montana to Texas. And we knew that along the way, we were kind of looking out photographically for young people in the summer, and sort of the idea of, American teenage summer youth vibes. And so everywhere we'd go, we'd stop for lunch, and we'd go by a park, or we'd go by a skate park or a burger joint, and we would talk to kids that were around. And it was a very interesting experience, but nothing really held us longer than a conversation. And sorry, there's horns. And so when we were getting gas, it was the last night of our trip, this pickup truck pulled up, and it was like these girls kind of found us a little bit. They were running around the gas station. They were screaming. They were like the epitome of everything we had kind of been looking out for. And so we just knew we had to talk to them. And so we went over, we were on like the last roll of our film camera, and, asked to take their photo, and got to talking. And then they invited us back to their friend's house. And I think we really just were so captivated by the freedom of their youth, and the feeling of summer and excitement, and endless possibility. And then just wanted to keep that around. I mean, it was very, very magnetic.
In making the film, did they remind you of your experience of being on the cusp of adulthood, either through meeting them or through just making the film?
Absolutely. Oh yeah. I mean, in so many ways, even not only reminding us of our years, but things we'd like hang out with my friends, like my closest girlfriends. We would like lounge on each other's bodies on a bed, like very similar to the way these girls do. And it was, I think, part of one of the reasons we all connected with them was like just our mutual experience of girlhood, being a girl and trying to figure it out. But it was also, it kind of threw us back to, like you said, like that time where you're trying to figure it out, and you're trying to figure out who you are, and you're trying to figure out like if you're running from where you come from or running towards what you want, and what does that even mean? And I think revisiting that and just being so interested in that time is really like what drew us to this project and to like our friendship with these girls.
Yeah. Anything you want to add on that as well?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think, and there's such an intensity, I think, to being a teenager that's so wonderful. And I think has always drawn us both to coming of age stories. And it was quite fun to sort of feel like you get to relive those years, because, you know, we weren't so far in age from them when we met. We were probably, I think, between 7 and 8 years older than they were. So it felt like we were just kind of coming out of the time that they're currently in, and kind of feeling that connection and the understanding that you get in hindsight from teenagehood and all the possibilities that come with it.
One of the most like interesting scenes for me was when Autumn is painting, and she says to her dad, there's a bit of a discussion with her dad, and says, you can't put bright paint over dark paint. And his dad's like, no, it's beautiful. All you got to do is, you know, fix the boo-boos and have a shower. Like, that's all you need to do. A very interesting sort of perspective on painting, but also on life. And I was wondering, like, from your guys' perspective and from your experience of making this film, from your experience of also having been young teenage girls, like how much impact can sort of the sort of feeling that you can't sort of fix the darkness in your life, and that sort of you're sort of burdened by that, and it's sort of irreversible, can't go over it. Like how much is that sort of prevalent in the sort of minds of young women?
First of all, thank you for pulling out that scene, that line. It's one of our favorite scenes in the film, and it is absolutely speaking to way more than just painting. So thank you. But you know, it's interesting. I feel like something that we hope happens from this film is that people feel encouraged to speak up, to say what's bothering them, and that communication is really like the path to starting to heal. And that when you keep one of the last lines in the movie, Alani says, like, when she keeps things in, it doesn't really help her, and she just gets more mad or sad or upset. And you know, we have seen girls keep things in, and you know, it's you can compartmentalize all you want, and you can push down what's going on, but that's not going to it's going to delay dealing with something. And, you know, I think a lot of the times people get in their heads and they get into like, you know, a spiral of negative thoughts of things being undoable and irrevocably bad. But I think it's hopefully people through watching this film, but in general, can start to see that you can put bright paint over dark paint. And it takes a while for it to dry, if we keep the analogy going, but that it is doable. And hopefully people can feel hopeful and encouraged to figure out how to start to put the new coat on.
Yeah, definitely. That is one of our favorite. I actually own that painting. Autumn wound
it was
up
a gift
me
for Isabel's birthday. That's a
gift. And every time I see it, I think, you know, Autumn, I hope you learn that you can put the light paint over the dark paint. But it is a very beautiful painting nonetheless. So
it's not too dark for you, Isabel?
No. I think it's great. I mean, it's a great reminder. I think that is something that you learn in teenagehood, is that, you know, the darkness or the dry darkness is always going to be a part of you, but there are ways forward. You don't just need to, you're not going to be stuck with that forever, you know. There are paths through it.
I think something like interesting also about the film is like we see this world for these girls where there's a lot of like I guess pressures, and a lot of like sort of, you know, a sort of this whole idea is discussed in the film by the girls about the agency they have in relationships. And we also see a world where there's sort of like a sense of less agency, but also a heightened sense of judgment. And it's interesting when you sort of combine those two things together, where you sort of feel out of control, but you also feel judged for the decisions that maybe other people are making sometimes. How did you guys sort of try to balance or sort of play with those themes in the film?
Yeah, that's such a good question. I mean, I think so much of growing up, even when you're an adult, is balancing expectations, what you think is expected of you and what you think you're, to fit in, but also what you think is normal. And I think when you're younger, you're at such an age where you're like still figuring out how much is in your control. On the one hand, you want more freedom, you don't want responsibility. And, we definitely, editing wise, story wise, tried to figure out how to show some of those internal struggles. How do you get people to connect some of the dots of putting yourself in those shoes of like feeling like you're starting to realize, it's like you don't know what you don't know, and they're at an age where you're starting to know what you don't know, and you're starting to, but you're not necessarily in control of fixing it. And I don't know. I mean, I think it's a struggle.
Yeah, I mean, I think that learning process is ultimately what we're trying. That time is the time we're trying to snapshot. I mean, while we were making it, we would discuss like, oh, do we need to, film for 4 or 5 years and really like look at what happens to them? And then we realized that the thing we were really interested in was the short time,
this window.
Yeah, the blip when that exact feeling is sort of raging in the background of everything you do.
Yeah, we talk about it as like it's kind of like a fire burning inside of you saying like, I know what I feel, I know what I am, I know what I want to be, but there's like this tunnel that fire has to go through to get out. And it's everything from you're too young, you don't have a license yet, you don't make money yet, your parents want you to just be a kid, and there's so many like pressures at play that I think part of growing up is figuring out how to feel like yourself outside and not just inside. And hopefully that came across.
Yeah, it's interesting, like perspective, isn't it? Because there'll be things in this film that have such a big impact on these girls' lives, for the rest of their lives. There'll be other things in this film that were really important at the time that they won't even remember in sort of 10, 20 years. Like, it'd be interesting to see which of those things are which. Like, you guys are photographers. What shots are you sort of most proud of, or that you think is the most interesting shot in the film?
It's a great question. Thank you for that.
Yeah, that is a good one. I mean, I think I always am drawn to the opening shot, which kind of evolves in a very interesting way that winds up being a little foreshadowy of all the themes in the film, where the two girls are on a swing and the guys are in the background, and then the sort of perspective shifts a little bit.
I think I'd go with the flash, Izzy. You go.
Oh, yeah. No, I like when we get to watch them. I think we're both really drawn to long shots where you just get to kind of be and just see them think, or you get to see them work through something or something changing in front of you, but without needing to use, cuts for coverage and things. So all of my favorite shots are the longest shots.
Yeah, absolutely. One of mine is we call it the slash shot because there's like a slash of light in the background, but there's this shot of Brittany sitting on the floor at a guy's house at the end of a party. She's sitting in blue light because like these dudes are playing video games, and there's voiceover where she's talking about being too scared to say no to a guy when she lost her virginity. And the shot really just stays on her face for so long, and you just like get to see her kind of, I mean, paired with the voiceover, but you really just get to see her like smile, and then her face drops after she smiles, and you get to see like, I think you get to just get into her headspace of like being in a room like that where you're like enjoying it, but then actually you're not enjoying it, and you're just putting on a face to enjoy it. And I think, as Izzy said, like these long shots really help you like sink into their headspace of like, oh, I've been there. I've been like, haha, yeah. And then you just like kind of settle and don't maybe enjoy the moment. And I think that's so honest and helps people kind of relate to it.
Just quickly to wrap up, guys, what's something you learnt from making the film and from these girls?
It's like I've learned a lifetime.
Yeah, I know. It's like, I mean, I think, I think I came from a background in cinematography, and I think I shot a lot of verité documentaries, but I definitely learned a lot about putting together a verité story and how to show different sides of a perspective with a multi-character story, which, you know, is kind of a template answer, but it is very true. And I think it is quite difficult. And working with Parker, who did a great job with the edit, taught me a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, I feel like also we learned so much about, I guess I would say, like, I would call it toxic masculinity, but just that, you know, we really do live in a culture that promotes not saying how you feel and burying your feelings and emotions. And I think we learned so much about how that pervades men and women and families, and like everyone is struggling through it. Everyone is hurting. And, you know, it's easy to demonize one group for it, but I think it's, you know, we hope that the film kind of promotes, talking about how they feel, and that if we keep biting our tongues, this system is gonna, you know, it's gonna keep going. So yeah.
Well, thank you so much, both of you, talking to us today. All the best of luck with the awards circuit for the film coming up. And people watching this interview can go to goldderby.com, where you can make your own awards predictions and join the discussion in our forums. Thanks so much, guys.
Oh, thank you for having us.
Thank you so much, Matt. We appreciate it.